Welcome to the NHL 94 podcast, part of the CBP Media Network. This podcast is dedicated to the greatest game ever developed, where I will talk about the development of the game, tournaments and matches, our stories about NHL 94, the people that make up the NHL 94 community, the games won, lost, and the chirps that need to be heard around the world. Welcome 16-bit hockey fans to yet another edition of the NHL 94 podcast. I'm Len the Legend, and today we'll be doing another deep dive in the SNES side of things, the Smythe division, and we'll be looking at the teams over there, how to best build lines and how to play like a pro. And how are we going to do that? Well, we got a couple of guys that can play like pros because they are. We got Bob Kadelsky and the Professor. Gentlemen, how are you?
Hey, man, good.
Doing well, Len. Thanks.
Well, appreciate you guys coming on. The last episode was dynamite. Hope we can repeat it this time. I'm sure we can. And unfortunately for you guys, I heard you didn't do all that well in the classic. So I don't want to bring up some some bad recent wounds, but better luck next time. But at least good. with that being said, we'll just dive deep into the division. It's the Smythe division. And you know what? We'll start with you, Professor. I want to hear your thoughts on this division. We have Anaheim, Calgary, Edmonton, LA, San Jose, Vancouver, Winnipeg. What's your overview of this division?
I mean, there's obviously a couple expansion-ish teams, like with Anaheim. San Jose is not that strong, but I think with all the other ones they're playable. They do each have flaws, though, which doesn't quite make them all really top-tier teams. But if you play to their strengths, and each of them definitely do have strengths, then I think you set yourself up to play a pretty good game. But yeah, I'd say like imperfect, but doable for the most part. Like except for the Anaheim, San Jose. I mean, those are. Like if you just want to, I don't know, like have a slugfest of the bottom, scraping barrels, like those are also doable. Like if you're gonna play that kind of game, but yeah, I'd say like you can do well if you just know what each team is good at.
Bob, your thoughts on this division? It's got a lot of interesting components here, and that's I'm being very kind with my words.
Yeah, I guess first thing that comes to mind is sun and sand with all the California teams there, and it's kind of a funny mix with Western Canada, right? You got all the Western Canadian teams in Winnipeg, so Winnipeg and California, it's a huge geographical area they cover, I guess. And other than that, it's the Jimmy Carson division, because I love Jimmy Carson and he's there, so I'm happy about that.
Awesome. So we'll just dive that deep into it right away. Anaheim was the first team we'll talk about, and looking at this, just there's not much meat on the bone here. It's slim pickings what you have over here. I don't know what anybody would do in trying to setting up a good lineup, but you know what, Professor, I'll start with you. How would you set up your line if you were using Anaheim?
Yeah, I think Bob and I have the same idea. I think the forwards are the default, because there's really nobody else on that team in the forwards that'll do anything better than another one. Definitely like someone like Kasatonov on defense. He's actually like a pretty good player. And Bob's mentioned that before. He's probably the best expansion player on of those expansion teams. They're pretty big as a team goes. Like you've got Loney, who's got a 10 weight, and Kasatonov and Ledusser are huge. So that's why I have him playing. And I think some of his skills are just like a tad. I don't know. I just have a better feel for him. But I mean, overall, they're not really going to do a whole lot. They don't score very well. Generally pretty shaky in terms of speed. But I do really like the fact that they have great nicknames. So like when I play with Anaheim, like I call like Terry Yake, I call him Yake the Snake. So he's going to be dangling around there. And then also for some reason, I don't know why, but Leducer, like it just reminds me of seducers. I don't know, whatever. But anyway, I call him the seducer every time that I got him. So that's also another reason why I have him on the ice, just so that I can riff that off. But anyway, but they're otherwise terrible.
Yeah, they're terrible, but we have to put the expansion goggles on. And when we do that, I think Anaheim is actually one of the preferred expansion teams. Like you mentioned, I like their size with Kasatonov and either Leducer or Holder on D. I put Holder in there just to make for better podcasting compared to your Leducer. They're both solid, but Holder, he's a bit slower, but he has a better shot checking and passing. So I'm going to give him the edge there. And Kasatonov is great. Like he's basically a Fetisov clone with a 3-speed rather than Fetisov's 2. So he's actually quite a valuable player there. And then up front, Yake and Semenov with the expansion goggles on, they're actually somewhat skilled, if I can say skilled in quotes. And then Loney with that 10 weight and forechecking, he can be fun to kind of get in on the forecheck and create some turnovers and some space for those skilled guys. If we're talking about goalies, Guy Bear is there. He's not on St. Louis like he is on Sega. He's just on Anaheim. And the backup is Ron Tugnut, who former Sens great. And I narrowly missed shooting his young child in the head with a puck once. And that's another story.
I think you gotta keep going with that story now.
Well, basically it is what it is. I got to play once after a Senators practice, and I didn't realize he brought his young child on the ice, and I was shooting these wobbly muffin wristers without looking where I was shooting, and it was a very close call. But overall, Anaheim Ducks lacking skill, lacking skating ability, I'd say, but it's fun for an expansion team. They've got the Ducks logo and whatnot. They've got the size, they've got the nicknames. So in an expansion matchup, I feel like you can't really go wrong picking the Ducks because you'll have the size advantage and you have the best player on the ice in Kasatonov.
Yeah, I think Kasatonov for sure. Like I think he's a notch up on Fetisov for me, just because he's got that 4 stick handling. So that means that because Fetisov, like you know that it can be a grind if he can't take a pass. So I don't know. I whenever I get that like with that 11 weight. The 4 agility also is really great. Like he's able to kind of dipsy doodle around people. But that 4 stick handling with that size, like I think Kasatonov is like an upper tier defender. So yeah, like everything kind of would have to go centering on him. Like I feel like when I play with Anaheim, like I feel like I need to know, like I got to remember like which side he's on, but then I know that I can outlet it to him and then kind of take it to the net with him, even though that's feast or famine, because like I give up the puck, then I only have Leducer playing D, and I don't know, that might not always end well.
Yeah, I gotta stick up for my boy Fetisov. He has 4 stick handling as well.
Does he?
But
I don't think so. I don't think we're gonna have to check the tape on that one.
We'll check when we get to that division. But
you might be right. I don't know.
His issue is he's 2-speed Fetisov, so that's the big difference. But I think he has more defensive awareness than Kassett. I'm always comparing the two. They're kind of like twin brothers. But yeah. Ducks, I think they might be my preferred expansion team out of all 5 of them.
Wow. I have to ask, your 7th tier team, tier 7. So I'll pick your brain first, Bob, then go to the professor. So Bob, if you had Anaheim, what is your preferred matchup? Who do you want to be playing against?
Well, anytime you have an expansion team, the main thing is I think you want to be the home team. So if you're in a tournament play, you probably don't want to do an expansion matchup because you always get you're going to be visitor, right? So if someone ever picks an expansion matchup, I would like to be Anaheim. And I feel like Florida even though they have Gord Murphy, their forwards are just so awful. So I think I'd want to go against Florida.
And Professor, your thoughts on that?
I think I'd go against Ottawa. I'm not a big fan of that team. I can't really think of anybody there that's worth anything.
It's like a dagger to the heart of Bob Kadowski.
Well, here you go. You wanted a good show, Len. I'm giving you one. But I think like I don't know. Maybe I don't have a whole lot of recollection about Ottawa, but they're not necessarily that big of a team. Bob, you'll have to let me know, but that's where the advantage for Anaheim would be, is like when you're, because I'm not passing that much if I'm playing with Anaheim, just because everybody's going to boot the pass, right? Except for Kasatonov. So I'm going to have to like hopefully absorb a check or two to get to where, what I want to do. So I think like Ottawa would probably be the one that I'd like. If anyone's calling Anaheim Ottawa, 100 out of 100, I'm picking.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, Sens have some size up front. They got a couple good players there, a good sniper, but we can talk about them, I guess, another episode. But I think Ottawa's better than some other expansion teams.
When we talk about Ottawa, we'll do a episode solely dedicated to them, so don't worry about that. We'll do a 2-hour special. So let's go move on to Calgary, and Bob, you could lead off with this one. It's a decent team, right? They have a lot of good components here to make up a solid team. So, what are your thoughts? How would you build the lineup to make your opponents really rue the day that you're playing them?
So Calgary definitely has a lot of good parts there, like a lot of varied parts up front and on D. My son has decided they're his favorite team somehow based on seeing hockey cards, and I guess he couldn't resist a flaming letter for the logo. They're interesting because they do have so much depth and so much talent like across the board, but they don't really have, I don't think, a true superstar player. But up front, they do have a very, very good player, former Ottawa 67 and future Maple Leaf Gary Roberts. So he's everything you'd want in a center, really. Like, he's got decent size, skating, awareness. His shot is the 4 power, 5 accuracy. He's got 4 checking. He seems to hit for a guy of average size, like, really well. But I wouldn't say he's like an elite player. They do have that depth. Nieuwendyk, I like to put in on one of the wings. He's solid at 8 weight with sort of 4s across the board. He only has a 2 for passing, but not so much. Not so sure if that matters so much. Fleury, I like his speed, but he doesn't seem to be really kind of dynamic like a Bure, for example, and his shot isn't all that outstanding. So, I'm all for switching him out for any of their other talented forwards. Like Reichel can really shoot. Makarov is kind of like a Gretzky light with stick handling and agility and passing. Ranheim is good across the board. And then Otto's a really good bench option as well. One of the best defensive forwards, probably, with 5 checking and size. He's got agility. He's got even 4 shot accuracy. So I do see a lot of guys kind of throw him in sometimes for a different look. The defense is pretty great. They're not overly big, but like McInnes and Suter, they're both really mobile with good stick and passing. Suter's probably the better player with that agility and the D-aware and checking. But McInnes is that rare, skilled right-hand shot D-man. And he's got that famous shot power. And then on the bench, like, they're deep again. They got Michel Petit, who's solid, and Frank Musil, who's also a 9 weight like Petit, and he's got the 4-4 skating. So really good. Good team overall. Vernon in net, he's kind of your average floating brick kind of goalie. And I guess what keeps them from being like really elite team in my mind is that lack of like a true superstar, like a Lemieux or Neely. But I still love Gary Roberts. Would like maybe a bit more size on their starting defense, but it's a really good defensive pairing. So great team.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Fleury I think I had him on a draft league team once, I think, and I don't know, like he'll fall on, like, if you just run into him, they're just like not even check him. Like, it seems like he falls all the time, especially when you're playing in a league where or a team that's big all around. Like, it's, I think for the way that I play, like, if because I like to drive the net or to like make a move, I can't do what I want to do with Fleury. And I also just don't like him as a human, just overall. So I feel like, what, I'm just gonna put him on the sidelines. I do kind of like the idea, though, and of like maybe starting Joel Otto and seeing how he's playing that day, because like with that 11 weight and the agility, like if he's fast, like for a glitch reason, that game, like he's pretty unstoppable. That shot power is really not great at all, but like he'll just wreak havoc if for some reason he's skating. So like it might be a good idea to just start him off and see how he's doing. Like that 3-stick handling is going to be, that's also hit or miss. So if he's on, then that can potentially make the difference. But then otherwise, like you said, there's lots of options moving like from there that you can just kind of move down the checklist. Like I give Reichel the edge over Fleury only because the size is a little bit better. And I just feel like I need a little bit more from him, or Makarov too, but I don't like that shot power. It's a little bit too weak for me. But yeah, but on defense, same idea. Yeah, they're quite solid, upper, mid upper tier defensemen. But I feel like sometimes, though, and this is a frustration of playing with Calgary, is that they could be really slow. Like they're all 4s across the board, essentially. Like Fleury's a 5, but like generally, for some reason, they seem really sluggish at times. So for the tier that they're at, I find that just, I don't know, I just associate them too much with not being as dynamic as maybe the numbers would say. So it's kind of frustrating. Like there were times when I really liked this team, and then they'll let you down when you need them the most to show up. So, and I don't know what other people have, in terms of their experience with them, but I know that's the only reason why it gives me pause to pick a team like this, because they should be really good. But yet they're not. And it could be, like you said, Bob, because they don't have a true superstar that can kind of take over a game for you. Because they can all be really just kind of so-so, and then you're just stuck with them for the game. And yeah, it's disappointing.
Yeah, it is nice having the deep bench and the options.
True.
Like forward and D, though. And Joel Otto, like you mentioned, putting him in, I definitely got eliminated from an online tournament on a Joel Otto goal, and I just couldn't stop him or take him down.
Yeah,
and I'll never forget that. So ever since then, I have respect for Joel Otto. None for Theo Fleury, but Joel Otto, yes.
So when they're playing a little faster, then they're a tier 2 team, and we're sluggish, they're maybe a tier 3 team. Is that generally where they fit in, or is there something else to that?
Yeah, probably. I'd say so. But yeah, like when they're on, like they can be big, like Nieuwendyk with an 8 weight, and yeah, Otto with an 11, like and Roberts with the 7 weight. Like they're a really solid team, but then it's just a matter of them showing up and skating. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like they just let you down more often than they should be.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like there's times when they just have no jump. I totally get that, and they should be in that upper tier, like a 2 or 3, but sometimes they're just kind of like middle of the pack.
They got a late flight in last night, and they're not rested
Every flight's late for them.
Well, they're a West Coast team. Well, geographically they're located in a strange spot. Anyways, let's move on to Edmonton. And Professor, this is, you can lead us off with this one. This team is, more closer to the bottom of the barrel than anywhere else. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like they have some talent here, but clearly they're not all that good. So yeah, how would you build the line?
I don't know. I kind of like them for the tier that they're at. Like they're put at the one just above the expansions, but when you kind of take a look at each player, they're really like, with the exception of maybe Simpson. Simpson's a little bit on the lower end that you would want as a starter, but Klima, and Bob, noted that, like on the sheet, that Klima is like an elite player. Like, he is fast. He's got a great shot. Doesn't hit, but for some reason, but he can take a hit. Just because I think with the agility and the speed, if you kind of lean away from the checker, then he seems to do a really good job of absorbing the hit. Like, I really like Corson. I find that he's an underrated player with the 9 weight and the 4 agility, the 4 speed, the 4 checking. I think that, like, he's like, in a draft league, he seems to be lower on people's pecking order, and it might be because of the shot. But as a third option in a forward, like, I think he's actually pretty solid. Like, and he'd be a second option here, but he's still quite good for those numbers. Simpson's got size 2. He has a good shot, but again, I'm kind of biased. Like, I don't. The shot power is pretty good. The accuracy, like, I'm still not sold on the accuracy. I don't know, because, like, my man Tikkanen is like, I think he has really bad accuracy, but for some reason he still finds the back of the net for me. So yeah, generally the size is quite good. And when you take a look at the D, you got 9 weight all around, 4 agility. And yeah, so they have the ability to play solid stay at home D, but like with some of the skills that they got, like Manson with 9 with the 5 shot power. They all have really bad shot accuracy. Like, defensemen are known for that. But I think they can jump in and like, you can play a pretty good 5-man game with this team. So I think that they actually punch above their weight class in terms of tiers. I like this team. Yeah, so like, I don't have a hesitation choosing Edmonton, actually. Like, when people are looking at the card, and looking at the tiers and picking, Edmonton and somebody else on that tier, and I'm like, oh, I'll take them. I'll take Edmonton. They're, they're better than you think, I'd say.
Yeah, totally agree. They're underrated. Like, when the tiers were made, I say they're definitely better than other teams down there, like Dallas, for example, and even the Islanders, mainly because their defense is really quite good.
Really,
and then
yeah.
Klima's elite. So that's kind of the pro and the con, right? You have a big drop off after Klima. Corson's a great player. He's kind of like a Tikkanen light. You'd probably agree.
Yeah,
like, not quite as fast, but like, decent size. He can hit, right? And he's just kind of missing the shot. So he's a great guy, but you'd probably want him as, like you said, a third forward instead of your second forward. So there's really a big drop off after Klima. Everything kind of hinges on him, and if he gets hurt or if he's off, you're kind of in trouble in terms of trying to put the puck in the net. Simpson, there's been a couple guys over the years that just love Craig Simpson, but that 3-3 skating is kind of tough. He's kind of tough to use in that sense. But if you can get him going, like, it's a really nice mix with Klima and Corson as, like, the fast, big forechecking kind of guy to dig the puck out. But the D, I'd say the defense, like, Manson is basically the same player as Ellett, who we mentioned previously, as we both really like Dave Ellett. And they're probably the best defensive starters of Canadian teams, I would say. I mean, it's close with a couple of them, but Manson, Kravchuk are really quite good in terms of size and skills. I debated putting my man Luke Richardson in instead of Kravchuk because I like having at least one massively huge D-man, and I like Luke. But since the forward scoring is quite thin after Klima, I stuck with Kravchuk just because it's nice to have a little bit more skating and skill there if you can rush with your D. But Oilers are really interesting. Like when we started getting into the draft leagues, you see they have a ton of massive depth on defense. Like after their starters there, they have Luke, and then they have Glenn, Joseph, and a guy named Jeff Smythe. I think his nickname's Bird Dog. So those guys are all big and they don't have much skill, but like they can be super useful for your bench to come in and just take up space, right? So Oilers definitely underrated. I feel like they can beat any of those middle range teams there, like Toronto, Montreal, Philly, and I think they can even compete with those other skilled higher ranked teams like Vancouver and Winnipeg as well, just because of Klima and because of the defense. So yeah, it is. It's a good team, but you have to be careful because not much after Klima.
Yeah, Klima definitely. Like with the 5 agility and the 5 speed, like you can count on him to have at least a good night, like every night. And yeah, like with the shot too, I think, yeah, definitely. Like if other people are falling apart, like it doesn't matter, like you said, because the drop off is so much. Like if you take a look at the bench, like if Simpson's having a really terrible day, like you really got nobody. Like Doug Waite maybe, but that's a like he's just gonna fill up space. But it's just always Klima. So you got to feed him all the time, and he seems to show up all the time. I think just because like I find that if you have fives for the agility and speed, they're always going to be fast, right? Like so that to me is like the five and above is where you're going to get elite skating, and there's not that many people that have both 5s. So yeah, I just want to reiterate that Klima's the boss.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of bench at forward, Wade is my guy just because of his stick handling. He's got the 4, so he's not going to be messing up the passes, right?
Yeah.
But we've seen recently some people like Alec, and I'm not sure what his redeeming qualities are other than like he's got a 4 speed. But apparently that's another option. And then like Zdeno Seeger looks very similar. And then they really kind of lack bigger guys up front as bench options. There's no one there sort of worth using. I mean, McTavish maybe, but he's got like no skill whatsoever. So yeah, gets thin pretty fast up front.
He has no helmet, so that has to give you at least something, that, right? So with that alone, I think he's my choice to bring off the bench first. But then again, I guess I'm not the target player here. Anyways, let's move on to LA. And Bob, you can lead off with this one. This team has a lot going for them, and you mentioned you're a big Jimmy Carson guy. So yeah, man, let's go. I want to hear this. Your analysis of this team.
The Tonight Show with Jimmy Carson. That's what I say. Yeah, it's a great team in my opinion. For whatever reason, I can never like take them to the promised land and win Classic League with them, but I always am happy when I get them in Classic League. They're a top 5 team in my opinion. They have some high end scorers with size, and they have a ton of depth too. So Sandstrom up front is a beast with 9 weight, and again, he's got that rare 5-5 shot, similar to, I guess, Roenick and Cicerelli. He needs to be your center with those kind of skills. He's a really high-end player, no real weaknesses, other than like his skating isn't elite, but he's pretty great. And then I like Jimmy Carson on my right wing. I feel he's underrated. He's the perfect right wing for me, with 4s kind of across the board, and then the 5 shot accuracy. He's basically a mirror image of Pierre Turgeon, who people value quite highly, except he's a right-hand shot, which I like. Carson. And then on the other wing, you could go Robitaille with that 4-6 shot, and then you'd easily have the best shooting forward group in the entire game, right? But I just find Robitaille, for whatever reason, he doesn't do it for me. I can't score with him, even with that shot. I don't know what it is. And then he doesn't seem fast. He doesn't really hit for me. So I like to put in the Great One just to add a different dimension. He can kind of dipsy doodle around with that high agility, because it's nice to have that skating element to kind of carry the puck, and then you can look for Carson and Sandstrom, who have the wicked shots, right? So he's kind of fun to put in. It's a real shame that he's got a 2-2 shot for the guy with the most goals in NHL history, right?
They did him dirty that year, right?
Did they ever? On defense, like, Blake is great, right? He's huge, he's talented. And then you can put McSorley with his right-hand shot on the right size. He's a 12 weight in SNES, which is massive, right? But I find you can get caught kind of flat-footed back there. I'd say McSorley is kind of the Achilles heel of the starting lineup here. Some guys put in Jitnik with 4-4 skating, so maybe that's something I need to try. He does have a 3-stick handling though, so there's a bit of risk there again with bobbling the puck. So just overall great shooting team with size and lots of options. I just find some of the guys like Robitaille, McSorley, even Gretzky, they tend to have a lot of kind of off games where they just don't seem to have it for me. Maybe I'm expecting too much from them. I don't know. But regardless, LA has potential to be like elite, high-end team and can compete with anyone, really.
Yeah, Gretzky is really the wild card, because I've seen some people, like I think a Coke, that played with Gretzky and really knows how to work him. But I don't know. For me, again, like with that 4, because he's so small that he's never going to take a hit. And so either you can dipsy doodle, like you said, with him, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I can't do that very well. So I need to sit him down. And I have Robitaille in the left wing only because it feels weird not having him there. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like for the size that's up there, the checking isn't super strong, but I think it's like it's compensated by the fact that the guys are quite big, like with Sandstrom and Carson being 9s. They can absorb a lot of punishment and do a pretty good job of dishing it out too. I agree. Like Blake is great. He's probably one of the best defensemen in the game, I'd say. McSorley again is he's wildly unpredictable. Like with that 3-stick handling, like you forget, like, because there's so much skill everywhere else, that again, I pass it to him and then he doesn't take it, and then it's a breakaway, for the other team. So then, yeah, I'd say Jitnik would be the next one, but then like look at that drop off in the weight, right? Like now all of a sudden there's a vulnerability in your D, like with that 5 weight, like it's not like Jitnik's not doing a whole lot. Like you have to just trip like all day. Yeah, like I really like my favorite matchup, or one of my favorite matchups, like when I were calling a game like for King, is LA Detroit. And I feel like they're just so different that and like one team's strength is another team's weakness. I feel like you can't like there's no disadvantage, I guess, just because like they are so different. But I don't know. I feel like for me, they do show up more often than they don't. So yeah, whenever I get them, I enjoy playing with them. And again, like you said, Sandstrom is a beast in the middle. And for me especially, like I need someone strong at center, just to play that 2-way game, like making sure you play good defense with the center. So yeah, pretty good. I mean, your goalies are generally quite terrible on this team too. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Are you starting Hrudey all the time?
Yeah. I think Rob Stauber is like, I don't know. Like, I don't bother. I mean, they're both horrid, so like it doesn't matter to me. Like,
Rick Nickel, you're not even mentioning him as an option. Come
no.
on, man.
No, that's No.
Rick Knickel actually beat me in a draft league game 7 final. He just kept stoning me. I think I was winning the game, so they put Knickel in, and then just got stoned. There's actually like a highlight reel gif of all the saves that he made on my team in the second and third period because I couldn't score, and then ended up losing that game 7. So Knickel's a bit of a legend in that sense, but I don't think it had to do with his ratings or anything. It's just kind of, random. Could have been any goalie there, right?
Stars were aligned.
That's played the game of his life. Yeah.
I have to ask you each, guys, because, okay, Professor, you're saying you prefer having Robitaille. You like him as your left wing. But Bob, you said you really love having Carson on your left wing. But I see Carson for... Sorry, right wing. So, am I right or wrong?
Oh, left wing. Yes, you're right.
You love having him on the left side, you said, I think, right?
I do.
So why is it that you love him on the left side, but yet the Professor has him on the right side? Why don't you have Robitaille in there? He absolutely likes Robitaille. I'm curious, like, why is Carson your ideal left winger? And I want to hear, Professor, why Robitaille is your ideal left winger.
So just quickly, like, I guess I like the off wing shots, right? Like we talked about that before. I just find kind of it's better for picking the corner on the short side. I find when they have their stick on the middle of the ice, it's a little bit better for one-timer options and just kind of deking options, and a lot of guys like the left stick on the left wing. So yeah, I'm curious why Prof went that route here.
Yeah, I think just Luca's like historically just been a left winger. I don't know, like I can't unmarry him from the left wing. So it's just a psychological thing. Like it makes perfect sense. Like we talked about this the last time, that like the off wing does have an advantage. And you know what, I think I might even go the other way too, like if I were to make this again. But I feel like sort of depending on the game, because it's like with this team, because they're so big, like I feel like you can go north-south pretty easily. There's not a whole... I mean, they can absorb a lot of punishment. So when I have a left winger on with a left shot, I'm forcing myself to kind of play more into the middle of the ice. And because once you get in the middle of the ice, you have way more options, obviously. So I feel like I can get away with that. Like with this configuration, I find. But I mean, I might take Bob's advice and kind of switch it up, and maybe we'll see how that goes.
Well, I took the advice from you because I saw you doing the off wing thing. So I guess it's kind of like coming around.
So yeah.
We've been around.
I just do random crap, man. Like I don't know.
Whatever.
Like when something's not working, I think I just switch it up and looks like genius, but I'm not thinking things through, dude.
And just quickly before we move on, like we didn't really mention the bench beyond the top 4 forwards, but like they are deep. So Granato is there if you need an injection of speed, and then Curry's just kind of like solid with decent size across the board. So they have lots of useful parts similar to Calgary. So it's good if you like to tinker with your lineup.
But Granato, I mean, I can understand putting him in because of his speed, but Curry, that's just if you have injury or penalty problems. That's when you put him in, right? Like,
well, I like him because he's bigger, and like depending on, again, like that 3 speed might end up being pretty quick, just depending on on the game to game, right? So if you catch him on a day where he's took his energy drink and is moving faster, like he can, then. Like there are times when Robitaille isn't playing very well, and I'll switch him out. And the first one would be, first one off the bench would be Yari Curry, and and if it works out, it works out, and it's he's actually quite a good option, despite the three speed. Like that 8 weight is comes in handy.
Yeah, Bob, do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Like for some people, he might be the 4th best forward in their mind, right? Like if you're not a Gretzky guy, and if you don't want Granato because he's got a 3 stick handling, for example, then Curry might be your fourth best forward, or your 4th option there. So first off the bench. So yeah, They have some nice parts.
It's not bad if you're replacing Gretzky with somebody Curry. It might as well, right? Like those two, they're the connection back in the day. But let's move on to San Jose, another trash team. I don't know how we're gonna make a chicken salad out of this one, but Professor, you have to try to make something out of this. I'm not sure how, but give it your best shot.
Pat Falloon is a redeeming quality of the San Jose Sharks. I think he's probably one of the best expansion forwards because he's got the 4-stick handling, so you can count on him to take a pass and to kind of make something happen. 4 agility, 4 speed, 7 weight. So he's okay in terms of the size. Can't hit for beans, so that's the huge drawback for me is he's not going to do a whole lot of on D for you. But I think he's even on the All-Star team, right? So that kind of goes to show you that he's a pretty solid player overall. Like he's, from the, again, like with the expansion goggles on here, right? Like he's like he'll do the trick. I have a Berezin over on the right, just even with the 2-stick handling, because everybody else is terrible in terms of stick handling. So I'm gonna try at least to start him just because of that speed and that size. Again, you can tell like they're a really small team up front. So yeah, like you're gonna need to depend on pretty solid skating because there's no tic-tac-toe passing plays happening here, and Kissio is just whatever. I think actually Johan Garpenlov would be a bit of a better option actually, just because with the 3-3, but again they're all pretty terrible after Falloon and Bears, and even Bears can be quite terrible. Yeah, and then on D, we both have Doug Wilson and Sandis Ozolinsh. Wilson's actually pretty decent, like with, again, the 4-stick handling. So you've got a playable player there in terms of trying to make something happen, like on the offensive end. But that's and that shot power actually is also really, pretty impressive. But that one accuracy that goes pretty wild, pretty fast for some of them. Smolik is actually a pretty interesting option there with that 12. So if you need just somebody to hit someone, he's your guy. But other than that, Urbe's half decent goalie. But everything else, like I'd say it's just the Pat Falloon show for me. Oh, and I love the organ music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's Jaws, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Jaws.
Yeah, that's tough to beat. So I have a bunch of Pat Falloon rookie cards. So they must be worth a lot of money then.
I'll buy 100 off you. Yeah.
Drafted second overall, right after Lindros.
Right after Lindros? Yeah. So yeah, I think for me they're kind of middle of the pack in terms of that expansion group. Ahead of Florida. Not sure if they're ahead of any of Ottawa, Anaheim, or Tampa Bay for me personally. But yeah, I find Falloon can be a decent player with the 4-4 skating, and Kissio 2-2 skating, but I guess I have him there just because he's got the best shot on the team, 3-4 shot. So kind of feel like I need to have him there. And then Berezin is certainly a good option with his skating, but I liked Garpenlov just because Berezin only has the 2-stick handling, and then this team has a ton of right-hand forwards in terms of their quote skilled forwards. So Garpenlov just gives you that left shot, bit of a different look. And he's also the starter. And for me, that's just like my bias. If they have like an actual profile picture, I think, maybe they get a boost or something. And then, Goodrow looks like maybe he's another option if you're looking for someone who can do something good for you. yeah, there's not really much size up front. Like they do have some bigger guys we didn't list here just because their ratings are just so awful across the board. And then yeah, their defense, I don't mind it. Doug Wilson has got some great skills. You'd like a bit more size for sure on the D, but in terms of skills, they're one of the better expansion teams. Ozelinch has a slight edge over Wilkinson just because of the shot. It's so much better. 3-2 shot versus a 2-0 shot for Wilkinson. So yeah, cool team. Jaws music. And expansion matchups are kind of a crapshoot, but I wouldn't mind if I had the Sharks. I feel like they can be just as good as any of the other expansion teams, but put them up against any normal team and it's going to be tough.
How do you play them? Because they're light teams, so you really got to work hard to avoid the checks and play that size to your advantage, or lack of size to your advantage if possible, right? Is that the way to take advantage of the Sharks game?
I think you got to go like short passes, because I feel like short passes are bobbled a lot less. So yeah, you got to play tight. You got to know who you can pass to. So like again, like I need to remember where Doug Wilson is, so because I know I can count on him. But yeah, generally speaking, like it's pretty tough. Trying to bang your way into the slot with these guys. So yeah, you just kind of hope you just take, or cash in whatever opportunities just kind of end up happening. It's it's a tough, like they're good for an expansion team, but it's tough otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just looking at Kissio with his 2 agility, 2 speed, and it's reminding me that someone in the community recently found something in the Super Nintendo code that for ratings that are 2, if they display as a 39 when you're looking at the team rosters or the edit lines, it means that they have a boost, or they're very likely to have a boost. Even though it says 39, it acts as though it's, I don't know, I want to say it's more like a 4 or greater. So maybe, Kissio at times gets that boost, but maybe you have to check if he has 39s there.
That is interesting.
Yeah, that just came out like a month ago, and it took me a lot of messaging of clarification with Nick Marcus, is I think.
Yeah, he's actually going to be coming on very, very soon. He's the next.
He's a resident R&D,
Perfect. So you have to ask him about that.
Yeah.
I hope he's okay with me mentioning that, but you'll have to dive into that a little bit further, and he can explain that a lot better than I can.
Is it on the public record? Like, is this or is this?
It
like,
is.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I think it's in one of the threads. Is it like ROM hacking or something like that? Like it's one that I have muted. So I just heard through the grapevine, and I had to go asking around to better understand it. But yeah, you have to ask him about it.
So you're scouring then the rosters for guys that have 39 skill, and
I think that's what it is. Yeah. So
what an abnormality that is. Interesting. Now I have one question to ask you before we get off San Jose. I can't believe we're talking about them this much, but the road ice disadvantage is noted here as being brutal. Is this something that is noticeable? The team is crap to begin with. So are you able to like just tell when you're in a road that things are even worse with San Jose, or they're just bad? It doesn't really matter in the end.
I think all the expansion teams on the road are noticeably worse. Like they're bad to begin with, but on the road, it's like you can't complete a pass sometimes at all.
Terrible. They're just terrible.
Okay, let's go to a better team. And oh man, this is a team that has a heck of a lot of speed. Now, Bob, I want to hear your thoughts on this, because in Genesis, they are considered to be a really good team, given the fact that how much speed they have. Bure's an elite player, but in Super Nintendo, not so much. So yeah, I want to hear your analysis on this team.
Yeah, so I mean, they are a very good team, but I guess what keeps them from being elite is probably the defense, and maybe the size as well. But yeah, definitely like speed is what this team's all about, with Bure, Courtnall, and Ronning if you use them. But for me, I think the key is really Linden, who's sort of a better all around forward, right? So he's really the key to making this team very good instead of just a bunch of speedy guys. So I really like Linden because he's got like a lot of fours across the board. He's kind of a Kirk Muller mirror with the right hand shot. Also kind of similar to Jimmy Carson with slightly less shot agility. And then Bure, I used to always put Linden at center, but I like having that right shot on the left wing. So if I put Bure at center, he's probably the fastest guy in the game, just given like his small size and then his 6 speed. His shot is nothing special, but like he's pretty elite, just given his skating ability. And then Courtnall's a decent complement. Jeff Courtnall on the right. He lacks the shooting, but that's fine. He's quite a good kind of forechecker with that speed and good complementary player. The key here is really that duo of Linden and Bure. And then there's a lot of bench options like Ronning. You can bring him in if you want even more speed, but he doesn't really give you anything you don't already have. So I'd look at probably Adams with that 5-shot accuracy. Some guys like Dixon Ward because he has 5-shot accuracy as well, surprisingly, and 4 speed. And then Momesso is kind of intriguing with 11 weight, 4 agility, 3-3 shot. The problem there is like brutal stick handling. So lots of depth there. And then on D, like Lume, he's their best defenseman skater and the best lefty probably, with a 4 stick handling, 4 passing. So you kind of have to have him there. He's not overly large or skilled, but like he's decent. And then on the right side, I'd have Lidster probably. He's got good size and decent skills, makes him very dependable. But some guys go with Gerald Dudek because he's big, he's got decent skills. The major downgrade there is his 3 stick handling, so at risk of bobbling the puck again. And similar to Edmonton, they've got some depth there with really big guys like Slager and Merzen, who are kind of intriguing, but more so for like a draft league if you're looking to fill out your roster. So yeah, the duo of Bure and Linden is fun. That's the key to this team. The downside is sort of outside of Linden, you're lacking size and hitting, and the D is kind of lacking anyone elite. But Vancouver, it's a very good team in that kind of upper middle pack. Like I see them kind of there with Winnipeg and maybe some of the other Canadian teams, like I don't know, Montreal, maybe Edmonton. But yeah, I like them.
Yeah, I think the speed definitely is their what sets them apart from some of the other teams. Like I'd like again the fact that like I like a center that can hit, because I just depend on that center so much on defense. So that's why I put Linden there with that 9 weight and the 3 checking, which isn't half bad because the other 2 can't really hit. Courtnall with the like his weights. I mean, it's a 7, but it's his checking of 1. So you're gonna have to either do some tripping, but and Bure with the 5 weight doesn't do a whole lot there on defense. So yeah, I think that this team can skate circles around other ones, but then like on defense, it can be a pretty spotty in terms of the wings. And then also, yeah, the defensemen they're pretty good in that they both can take passes. So again, with that 4 stick handling, like you can play a good 5-man game. But yeah, Lume's not particularly big, and Lidster doesn't have a whole lot of skill other than like he can maybe move the puck for you, but he's not gonna light up the lamp by any means. Yeah. So this is a good one where if you have a really good, if you've got a lot of moves in your back pocket in terms of like making, skating around other teams, like this is a good team. So again, like I mentioned, like if you know how to leverage strong skating players, then this is a really good team for you. But for me, that I feel like I need to make moves and get in the slot and like have to take a hit. Like this isn't really, I don't know. It's deceiving. Like I think I like them until I play with them, and then I don't. So yeah, I mean, I'll like if the team falls on my lap, I'll take them. But otherwise, I'm not really. I don't know. For some reason, like I don't like Bure. Yes, he's got the skating, but otherwise, like I don't know. I don't really feel Pavel Bure, to be honest. I don't know.
I'm curious. You guys don't list Peter Nedved in the game. Is he in?
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, he's got good shot accuracy.
We left him off. I think he's got. Is it not like a 6? It's a 5 or a 6 shot accuracy.
Something like that. Like weak power, but he could shoot it like wherever he wants. It's gonna,
Yeah. The
slowly
problem
get there.
The problem is like if the shot power is low, and I think he's also like kind of a brutal skater who lacks size too, right? So it's like if you just have shot accuracy and nothing else, it's really hard to take advantage of that skill. So yeah, we didn't list him here. We could add him to the list though as a bench option. That's a great point, and I just thought of that before you brought it up. Actually,
great minds think alike.
Exactly.
Cliff Ronning is also frustrating. Like I've had him. I picked him in a draft league, and that was the worst showing ever. I don't know why. Like I thought that 5.5 agility speed was gonna be a game changer, but that 5 size really. And he's not that far off from Bure too. Bure seems to take a hit, not bad, just again because of that speed. But yeah, Cliff Ronning is, I don't know, deceivingly terrible for me. That's just my experience. Power. Yeah, the 2-shot power doesn't help either. But I don't know, like he was falling left, right, and center for me. No.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's really hard to use. He just kind of. Yeah, he'll fall down, and like if you can get a shot off, it's always extremely underwhelming.
Any team that you hate to play against with your Vancouver, like within the tier?
Oh,
I mean, I feel like they can compete against the skilled teams, even like if you had to go against like a Detroit or a Chicago, like you wouldn't want to, but I feel like it would be tough going against the Rangers, the Kings, those bigger teams that are also skilled.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we could go to the last team, which is Winnipeg. They have decent amount of skill, but there's not much depth from what I could see over here. So it's going to be interesting how you guys would build this, especially as you get into penalty trouble or injury problems. So, Professor, we'll start off with you with this one.
Yeah, I remember I won a classic. It was like it was the second of a back-to-back. This was like the first time I came into the community. I think it was like 2020. And I won, I guess, because nobody knew, and I was just a newcomer. So I got Detroit in that first classic that I ever played, and I won that. And then obviously then you pick last, and I was like, I guess I'll take Winnipeg. And then I don't know how I won classic with Winnipeg, because I think that they're actually deceivingly also pretty bad. Like other than Solani, who is incredible, he's an awesome player, because he's like the weight is it's not as high as maybe you'd want, but he has a great shot, hits really well too for a forward with a 3. So he kind of does it all. So I like to have him at center. But then after that, like Zhamnov looks like he's got a lot of skill. But he can be slow as molasses at some point. And I don't know, like he can be really slow. And the same thing with Steen too. Like they both have 3 speed. Obviously that's probably why, but I don't know. Like on paper, they're better, but they're not. And I don't know why. So I remember slugging it out and just being like, just pass it to Solani, just pass it to, like, it was just It was like that pass it to Will, like back in like with Fresh Prince. It was like that's just the strategy. Like somehow get Solani the puck, and then just do something there. The options on the bench, like you've got is it Davidov? I can't remember. Davidov. Yeah, and like with the skating's not bad, but he's small and he can't hit, so it's going to be an issue. Like if you got to play D. Chuck is there, but he's real slow, and that stick handling's awful. I'm not even talking about, is that Mike Eagles? I'm not even talking about him. There's no, I mean, like either go with Chuck, because I mean he's just all of his numbers except defensive awareness is better. But Housley is a great offensive defenseman, but he is a liability when you're trying to play defense. So it's he's not hitting anybody, so you gotta just trip with him. Olesen is actually a pretty decent defenseman, underrated, I'd say, because he's big. Stick handles, yeah, he's not the fastest, but he's definitely pretty good. Like he's the hitter, even though the checking is a 1. The fact that 9 weight, I think, and I believe defensemen, and Bob, maybe you can just verify, but like I remember reading the back of the box for Super Nintendo, or reading the manual, that defensemen get like a boost, right, in terms of hitting. I'm not sure, but I felt like defenders got a boost. Like if those numbers were on a forward, like the defenseman's still hitting better. I don't know. Maybe I made that up. But I felt. Yeah, we're gonna ask Marcus that. Len, can you talk to him about that?
Ask him. That's news to me. Like maybe that was in the back of a Nintendo Power or something. Like I've never heard that before.
Oh, that's how I don't know. At least that's my recollection of things. But yeah, I think for like, honestly, I think I would like, this is a coin flip between this and Vancouver, because I'm not like this is the opposite of Vancouver, right? Vancouver has speed everywhere and forwards, but here you've got one guy, and it's frustrating at times. So other than like Solani's the only redeeming quality. Housley's great, but again, like when you got to play D, you're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, I agree. Like Winnipeg is a team I never used to like, but I've really come around on them. Solani is just top 5 player in the game, and Jamnov and Steen, I agree. They're not the swiftest skating skilled players, that's for sure. But like they can whip the puck around. Like they've got the stick handling and the passing, so they're kind of nice complementary players for Solani in terms of setting him up and getting him the puck. But I agree, like that kind of the speed is missing for those guys, unfortunately. What's surprising is that they're all 3 checking, which I just realized today when I was having a look at this. Like that's actually decent. Davidov is a really nice option. The issue there is the stick handling being less than a 4, but otherwise, like 4-4 shot and 4-4 skating is really quite good. Plus, he gives you another right-hand shot option if you want. And Housley, I never used to like him just because of the size, and I couldn't play good defense with him. But you have to get used to the poke checking, like you mentioned, and I've worked on that a bit, and so if you can use that with him, he becomes really valuable actually as a rover. Like you can go deep in the offensive zone. Like that skating is just unreal. One of the most skilled players in the game when you put that together with his stick handling and passing. So yeah, it's totally all about setting up Solani. Like it's just, get him the puck for the one-timer, or rush up the ice with him. He's so good, which alone makes this team similar to Buffalo with McGillney. Makes this team a real threat. And then Olesen, I agree, kind of underrated. Another right shot defenseman that that has sort of good skills across the board, and Newman is a really solid option off the bench as well. So yeah, you'd like to see a bit more size and a bit more speed, but like I guess I'll call them puck skills in terms of stick handling, shooting, and passing are really good. And then you have speed in terms of Solani and Housley, right? So you have two really elite skaters. So again, similar to Vancouver, like I put them right there as a skilled team in that upper middle tier that if you had to, I feel like you could compete with those Chicago and Detroit teams as well.
I'm shocked you both talked fondly enough, like not overly fondly of Davidov, because he's a very small player. Granted, he comes with a lot of 3s and 4s across the board, but just being 6'8", I know he's a right-handed shot, and you were mentioning having that is elevating his standing on this team. But really, I'm kind of amazed that you'd like him that much. I mean, that he's a viable option, considering just he's a 6'8". It seems like he's a mismatch in this team.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he was a 3 on the stick handling, because I do take him and put him on the ice, and I guess I never thought of that. I always thought of him as a pretty viable go-to, just because I really don't play anybody that's if I can choose to keep guys with 4 stick handling just for the consistency. But it's the 4-4 skating, right, with the agility and the speed that helps to complement when Zhamnov or Steen are having a particularly rough day on the ice. And yeah, I mean, he's not a starter, I'd say, just because of the size, but as a bench option, there's worse. So because of the complementary, the cure for potential speed issues with the other two. I'd say that's probably why it fits so well.
And Bob, you like him because he's a right-handed shot, right? That's one of the primary reasons you're a big fan of his, or at least a moderate fan of his.
Yeah, Davidov, right-hand shot, and like Prof said, the 4 speed is kind of the next fastest forward after Solani, really. Some guys do start Davidov, I think, in place of Steen. I have seen that for sure. So it's just a matter of preference. But, Steen and Zhamnov, you would like them to be a little bit better, a little bit more fleet of foot, but they can make some awesome plays. They can make magic happen with Solani there. So yeah, it's a fun team.
So somebody presents Winnipeg and whoever as the matchup, and you're always going to pick Winnipeg. Who would be that other team that you're going to have an advantage, you think, in this tier?
An advantage over? I don't know. I feel like a lot of people pick Winnipeg, Vancouver. Definitely is a popular matchup. And yeah, to be honest, I don't know who I would pick. I'm probably leaning towards Winnipeg these days, but I don't know. Maybe like a Montreal or Quebec. You'd probably feel pretty good about going against.
Because I think I like Montreal. Again, they kind of feel like a Calgary, because they don't have anybody really stands out, but they have pretty good players all across the board. I think if I were to go, if it was Vancouver, Winnipeg, I think I might go Vancouver, just because of the speed, and nobody's overly big on Winnipeg. I mean, the heaviest guy you've got is well, in the forwards, you've got Steen, that's an 8. So not a whole lot of size. So Vancouver's lack of size doesn't really make it much of a disadvantage anymore. But I feel like with the more consistent and higher level speed for Vancouver, I feel like that might make a difference. But again, though, Solani is Solani. He's the X factor in any kind of matchup. He can easily take over a game, if you know how to if you know what to do with him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very similar to McGillney, I guess. It's kind of like when you're picking the team, you're picking them for that one player, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a poor man's McGillney. But he's still pretty damn good. But you know what I mean? Yeah.
And a right hand shot. Too,
yeah.
So a bit different.
That's true. Yeah.
McGillney's a right-handed shot or left? I thought he was
Solani's right, McGillney's left.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what, gents? We're halfway through it. We're done one conference. Next, we'll be doing the Adams division, and we'll be doing that in the next few weeks. So I hope you guys are having fun and you learned a little bit too by doing these episodes. But yeah, you guys are enjoying this?
Oh, for sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
Awesome. So am I. And hopefully people that are watching and listening are enjoying it as much as we are. But with that, I mean, man, we got a little bit longer than I thought we would. And thank you for joining us once again, gents. And with that, keep your stick on the ice, controller plugged in. We'll be back at this in not too distant future.
Take care.
Thanks.